Hi everyone, it's Kim. Thanks for joining me. Earlier this year, AALL Create released another collection of critters designed by a tour de moi, if I'm saying that correctly. And of course, I have the dogs and the cats, but he also created a series of birds, chameleons, an alligator or crocodile. I'm not sure which it was, chickens, crabs, cows, frogs, and even a trio of mosquitoes. So get online and check out some of those other critters. I love the dogs and cats, so that's where I started. We had looked at some dogs and cats that he had designed earlier, so this just adds to that collection, which I love. And what I do like about his stamp sets is there's colored images on the front and the back of the packaging. So that gives you some ideas of maybe how to get started and some color combinations. And that's what I did when I started. I did look at this dog, and we'll look at him in a minute. And then, of course, we have our little kitty cats, and there are sentiments on each of the stamp sets as well. So let's start with our dogs, and this is called Your Possum. And I started with this big dog. And one thing about the stamps is like you got to color them. You don't have to, but more than likely you're going to want to color them. And that's always a little intimidating. So I always kind of try to look at one of the samples, and I am not the best at coloring. And I'm going to share a couple different ways that I did it. So I started off with this one with Tim's watercolor pencils and a water brush. And I just did the best that I could. And really, the people that are receiving these are not going to be critiquing how well I color. So I just tried to enjoy it. I also used some pencils. I used some markers like for around the eyes. So if there's super tight little places, I might use something else. When I was done watercoloring, I did go back with a few colored pencils and just added some shading. That was just a little easier for me. You will note that I don't have any like whiskers, anything that hangs out. I just trimmed off along the line. Normally, and why I didn't do it on this one, I don't know. I would stamp the image and then put the cutout dog on top. So we will look at some where I did do that. But for whatever reason, I didn't, and I didn't go back in and add those whiskers. I kind of penciled them in at first, and I didn't like what I did. So I erased those and thought, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. He's still cute. My flowers, I just pulled those out of my kind of leftover pieces. So I'm not going to venture a guess as to whose flowers those are. I really don't know. And then for sentiments, I could have used one of their sentiments, but I also decided to pull out the Better Press sentiments called Real Color Sentiments. I found actually these were great because some of the samples we look at are very, very colorful, and these really seem to go with it. One that I pulled off on this is focus on what matters. And I thought, oh, that would be perfect since he's so intent on his little ladybug there. And I did put some Nouveau Gloss. Oh, I can't think what it is. It's not called Glossy Accents, but any kind of glossy medium you have, that's what I put on the old ladybug there just to give it a little bit of shine. But I could use this card really for many, many occasions. And I wouldn't really have to put a sentiment on it and just save that for the inside of the card if I wanted. So let's give some equal time to our kitties. And this time, one of our cats is joining one of the dogs. So here's the dog that I'm using, and here's the cat. And you only see the upper half in the card. And on these, because I thought, well, I'm not going to see the whole body, I only colored the top half, the part that was going to be seen. And this time I used distressed ink. When I used Tim's watercolor pencils like I did on this one thing to remember is leave your stamp. I used the Misty stamp platform, so whatever stamp platform you have, leave your stamp on there. Because when I use the watercolor pencils, it kind of takes it colors over the line, and a lot of times it looks kind of chalky. So then I put my image back in before I cut it out, stamp again to restore all those lines so they're black again. Then I trim it out. When I use the Distress inks, I just used a little bitty brush. I used this brush actually because it's nice and small. So whatever little brush you have, this is a Wet n Wild eyebrow brush, and then I just picked up a little ink and I just could go in and color my little areas. It's okay to go outside the line because then I trimmed it out, but this was perfect. So any kind of little brush you have picks up that ink perfectly. And then I did not have to restamp over this because the Distress ink did not cloud out or kind of dilute those dark lines. Then I did use a marker like for the eyeballs just to go, as a Sharpie marker just to kind of color those in. And then if I needed to, I can use a gel pen just to kind of go through the eyes. If I kind of messed up in there, I can use this to whiten up those eyes again. And this time again, I cut out right along the cat. I didn't try to cut around those whiskers. And this time I laid my card down, kind of positioned where my cat was going to be, and I stamped just the top part. So now I have those whiskers again, and same thing on the dog. So if I trim something out, just because there's no way I could trim around all those hairs or these whiskers, I can stamp them in, and then when I put my cutout image on top, it's a complete image again. Now the car is also from AALL Create. I've had this for a while. This is called Nomad Wheels, and the cat stamp is called Just Meow Maurice. But I like this, and I bought this for Halloween, to be honest. But I thought, oh, it's perfect for my animals. So I'm going to show you a couple different things I did with that. I just cut it out. This one is just out of kind of a tan cardstock, and I used, again, Distress ink and just rubbed it in there. I think I used, a sponge this time just to add my color, and there's some other pieces you can add that you can die cut out for the wheels and the mirrors and the lights and the grill here, and just colored those in separate. So it's supposed to just be fun. And I just hand wrote buds in for my license plate. And this time, Friends Make Every View Brighter, again, comes from the Real Color Sentiments from Spellbinders. So again, just this time I went crazy with the colors and just had fun. That's what these are supposed to be. It's fun. So let's take another look at the car with the cat. This is the other cat here. It's the second cat. He is colored with the watercolor pencils and a water brush. And then I just used markers for the butterfly because that was so small. The cupcakes that are riding alongside him and this little swirl, I'm not going to even venture to guess where those came from. Again, those were already done, and I didn't go dig back through my dies to see whose dies those were. And then you can just see how I decorated the car. This time the cardstock is dark blue. So to bring out kind of all these little embossed areas of the car, I use this white pencil. I don't know if this is a watercolor pencil or what. I've had it in my stash. From Faber-Castell, and then I just went in and just pressed along the lines just to kind of, make that pop a little more of the car. The date down here on the license plate, if you know the date of your recipient, like this is going to be someone's birthday card, I put the date of their birthday as a license plate, and then my happy birthday is from Karen Berniston's Word Set 2 birthday die. When I cut the happy birthday out of yellow, I thought, oh, that'll pop good enough along the background. It didn't, so I just took a gel pen and just carefully went back over across the top of it just to make that pop a little more. But again, you could really use these for any reason. I didn't have to put cupcakes. I could put something else in there if it was for a different occasion. And finally, the last cat one that we're going to look at here is this trio of cats. And I thought, well, that would be a great a cappella group. So the car again is, I think this time it was more of a gray cardstock. Then I took a small ink pad and just rubbed it lightly over the top, and that kind of colored the upper part, and then the embossed area just stayed the same color as the cardstock. So this one was easy and it turned out really pretty well. And again, I just wrote that in there for the license plate. These cats are colored just with Distress ink again and this little brush, because I thought I'm not going to watercolor the whole thing and then cut off the bottom half. So if I just needed a portion, and I think these came out just as good as the ones that I used the watercolor pencils on, and it was a lot easier. So for this one, they're singing. Again, I could use this for any occasion, probably birthday, but there might be another occasion. So I did not put anything on the inside because I could put happy birthday, whatever chorus they're singing. And then I put the piano keys down at the bottom here. And those pieces, the notes and the piano keys, are all from the Piano Keys pop-up from Karen Berniston. Those were nice sized notes. And then I just trimmed off the tabs to make the piano keys work in a flat position. So I do like this. And again, I could really make this for a number of different occasions. And on this one, just because I used the Distress ink, just to let you know, like the tongue, the nose, things that are so small, that's where I took a Sharpie marker and just easily colored those in. And same thing for the pupils of the eyes. I just used a Sharpie marker. There's no way I was going to try to do that little bit with a teeny tiny brush. Okay, so let's go back to our dogs here. I finished looking up our dog. So this little pup with the wings, when I saw that, then I'm thinking, okay, how about the rainbow bridge? Now, maybe you want to use this dog without the wings, and that would be very easy, just to stamp it and trim out the wings. Very easy to do. You could use the wings on another animal if you wanted, say maybe one of the cats. You could trim those out and then use them on one of the cats if you so desired. But I thought I'm going to leave him as is. This one I did watercolor. He was pretty easy because he's so little. And then for the rainbow bridge, the bridge part is from the rainbow add-ons from Karen Berniston. That's used with the arch pop-up, but I had these pieces already cut out, so I just put them together. And then on the stamps, Forever Love, Forever Miss, Waiting at the Rainbow Bridge is from Karen Berniston's Rainbow Greetings. So the rainbow and the sentiments all go along with the arch pop-up die if you have that combination. But that's the perfect little card to send to someone who has lost their four-legged fur baby. But again, if you want to use a dog without the wings, easy enough to trim those off. I want to show you a couple other ways to do this besides just the watercolor and the Distress ink. So these two, I did watercolor with Tim's Distress watercolor pencils and a water brush, and then trimmed them out. But another way, we looked at the ones that use the Distress inks and this little pencil or this little brush. Those are easy. But I also have some cardstock that's just a mixed mash of colors. And I know there's different pads out there. This time I stamped directly on the watercolor paper, and I did not trim these out so you can see what they look like. And then there might be places like the nose. I would go back in his little bow on his tail. I colored those in. I took some color pencil. Maybe I wanted to make that part of his chest on the cat a little darker. I could go in and do the same thing with pencils or a marker. Different parts, the tongues I colored in with a marker. And then I used this jelly pen to do the eyes, because they would be whatever color is on the back or is on the paper, and I wanted white eyeballs. So I just took a white marker and just went back in there and color that in. Same thing like with the spot, the dot on the nose there, the highlight. So you can go back in and change those up a little bit and then just trim those out. So let's look at some cats that I did that way. So this cat is on the colored paper, kind of like this dog here, except it was more blue and green colors. And then these cats are with the actual watercolor pencil. So let me get it here so you can see. And then my background, I just thought, what else do I have that I can use? Once I get them colored, what am I going to use them for and what backgrounds? This is from Altenews Stencil Art Strong Oak. I've always loved this stencil, and that just was perfect for a background for my cats. So who knows what these four are up to. And Friends Make Every View Brighter Again is from the Real Color Sentiments, the better press plate we've looked at from Spellbinders. And then let's just take one more look at another dog. And this guy was cut out from paper. So he was kind of a blue, grayish paper. Very simple to do. I love the color of that. So same thing. I stamped him, cut him out. And then the nose I colored in with like a black marker. And I used a marker for the tongue. The teeth I did with the Jelly Roll pen. Same thing with the eyes. And then like the iris of his eyes, or around the pupil there, I used a marker. Same thing, glossed up that ladybug and just added some flowers. And then I knew I had some ladybugs from Karen Burniston, so I pulled those out. The flowers are from Karen, and then the ladybugs are from the Bug Borders. So I just cut out one of these ladybugs just to dress up the background a little bit. And then I did cut my oval into my background with just an oval nesting die set, and then just covered it with the flowers. Now, I love this dog as a dog mom. I would probably have a use for some of these dogs, but maybe not always with the butterfly. So what can I do other than a butterfly? So I die cut some other things out, and I can just put this over. So I've got the bees. In fact, the bee I'm going to show you comes from the bee border. And I could just put maybe a bee on his nose, depending on what the occasion is, rather than the butterfly. Or maybe, how about a bone on his nose? And I can put the bone here, position the bone however you want. And then if I need to, I can trim off that butterfly so it doesn't poke out. So, whatever occasion, we can move that over a little bit. Just play with it till you get it where you want it. But I also thought, what if I want to use this without anything on his nose? The bone comes from the dog border. But what if I want to use this and I don't want that butterfly? And now I've got my bone stuck on his nose. Let's pull that off. What if I don't want that ladybug on there at all? What can I do? So let me just show you real quick what I experimented with. I basically, just to show you, I stamped him out on just solid color cardstock. I haven't colored him in, but I trimmed off the ladybug, and I also trimmed off this back ear, because when I just trimmed off the ladybug, it looked funny with half an ear. So I thought, what am I going to do to fill that in? So I took this part and stamped that out again. So I have another ear, and then I can just play around with this ear. I'm going to show it to you in a dark color. Here's the light color ear, but just so we can see better what we're doing. I cut it out of a darker cardstock. So I could play around with this ear. Like, I'm going to turn it upside down. And again, it would be the color, same color over here, but just so we can see, I could position it like this. Maybe I want it to stick out a little bit. I could stick it out. Maybe he's seeing something. Whoa, he's got to stick that out. Let's see. I think I even did it like this. And then I could trim this top part off. So you can position this ear whatever way you think looks best. And if I have it the same color cardstock, then I think that looks pretty natural. And I can use this dog head for more than just a head with a butterfly on, or with a ladybug on it. So that's just another option to get even more mileage out of our stamps. But I do love this cat and dog. And again, if you are interested in some of the other critters that came out in this collection, get online and look up AALL Create and see what all other critters they have. I have to be honest, I'm considering that mosquito, as odd as that may sound. It was a pretty cool looking mosquito. But this gives you some ideas for the cats and dogs if you are a cat and dog lover, or you have cat and dog lover family members or friends that you could use these for. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you again in a future video.